Hi guys, Emma here, and today I'm going to be talking more about Mark Frost's The Final Dossier. First of all, I want to talk about the book as a whole, and then I'm going to go on to talk about Donna Haywards today and some of her family members and what happened to them and my feelings about it. So first of all, I want to talk about the book as a whole because I think that Mark Frost's approach to the book really informs how he has delineated the characters throughout the book. And first of all, I want to say that I think that the show, Season 3, and the book itself, The Final Dossier, have obviously been written by men who are sort of heading towards the twilight of the years, if you like, and it feels like, you know, they've approached their art with that kind of knowledge and wisdom of being older men who've seen a lot of things in life, who've experienced a lot of negative things as well as positive things, but who kind of are in that position to be able to translate that into their art, I think. And I definitely think there is quite a lot of darkness in The Final Dossier, and there obviously was in the show itself in Season 3. And whether that is a reflection of the times or whether it's a reflection of Mark Frost and David Lynch, I think it might be a combination of all those things. There are obviously more positive moments as well. So as well as that, I think that the story of Twin Peaks, that the overall story was set to take a dark turn because of what happens to Cooper and his choices. And so I wanted to talk about that and the fact that, you know, there's a lot of philosophizing in The Final Dossier, and that comes from Tamara, I think, in her learning curve that she embarks upon as she's been initiated into the Blue Rose Task Force, and she's coming to realize that, you know, there is a whole lot of experiences in life and feelings that she didn't know that she would ever have. She's beginning to realize her own spirituality. She's undergoing moments of learning spiritual wisdom, I guess. I feel like there's a lot of Mark Frost in that, in the way he's depicted Tamara. I really like this passage at the beginning, for instance, which I think it's true of all places, not just small towns, but this paragraph that I'm going to read, this paragraph that I'm about to read works from the perspective of Tamara, but it also seems to me like it's really Mark Frost and him looking back and back in time across his own life, maybe. The pace of change is extremely hard to perceive at close range. It's virtually invisible day to day, but viewed from a distance it moves like lightning. The trials and trivialities of daily life, I've concluded, act on the mind as a kind of local anaesthetic, numbing us to the relentless passage and ravages of time. I've also learned, a humbling admission to be sure, to view this effect as a kind of mercy, and I really like that. And some of Tamara's musings towards the end of the book as well. I think this section at the end of the book called Final Thoughts, where Tamara is giving her conclusion into how she feels and thinks about her investigation, it's everything really. It's like a representation of how we all think and feel about life in general, and yet it's sort of tied into Tamara's own investigation into the Twin Peaks story. But I really do feel like it's just a comment on life itself and how we all have these questions about why we are alive, why we exist, where are we in the universe. And this chapter, I think it really is well written, and I think the overall message in this chapter is really a strong positive one, in which Tamara says, you know, there is no answers really, we might never get any answers, but it doesn't matter if we don't get the answers. We should never give up trying, we should never give up trying to find the answers, we should never give up fighting for life and for happiness and for goodness. And I feel that, you know, if this is the last of the Twin Peaks that we ever get, then this is a really positive message to be left on. However, most of what happens to the characters in Twin Peaks in this book, you know, what I found out about a lot of the characters was kind of a sad thing, kind of sad story. So one of the ones that first hit me in this book was the story of Donna, and that's who I want to focus on today because I kind of was shocked when I first read the chapter. So basically, Donna goes to university in 1992. She becomes a model in her freshman year to make some money on the side. She cuts off all contact with her parents, but she occasionally speaks to her sisters. She also completely cuts off her friends, which I assume includes James. Over the years, she only writes to Audrey 2 times, but the contents of these letters is never disclosed to anyone. After her first year at uni, she drops out to become a model full time, and in her late 20s, she marries a much older man, and they have a very affluent existence, sort of hobnobbing with the hoi polloi. At some point she meets Lana, which is a very strange thing, and after this it seems like everything goes to hell. She develops an addiction to drugs and alcohol, and after 4 years of marriage she goes into rehab, in and out of rehab, and ends up in a psychiatric hospital at one point. Her mother dies of heart failure, and she goes on another bender, gets divorced, and then at almost 40 years old, I assume that she has no children. I don't think it's mentioned that she has any children. She moves back in with her father after reconciling with him and starts to study to become a nurse practitioner. So what shocked me about the Donna story was that she was originally such a sweet girl. You would never imagine that she would ever cut off contact with her parents, even after the events of season 2, when she found out that she was the daughter of Ben Horn. Her parents had been lying to her. I imagine that if season 3 had, just occurred right after season 2 had aired, then Donna would have eventually reconciled with her parents. Also, we don't know how much of what happens to each character is affected by Cooper's choices to save Laura too. So we don't know how much of the timeline has actually been changed, whether the lives of the people who we are reading about in the final dossier would have been any different had Cooper not changed history. I think this is going to get complicated, but it seems to me like the book overall suggests that Cooper actually did a good thing and that he succeeded, but because he did so, there may have been unforeseen consequences. So first of all, I want to think about Donna and whether this was a logical kind of storyline for her. So a lot of Twin Peaks fans, they talk about which Donna is your favourite. Is it Moira Kelly, or is it Laura Flynn Boyle? And I have to say that when I was reading this and thinking about Donna, I was thinking about Laura Flynn Boyle, and there may be a reason for that, because this character that we know about now, this Donna is quite close to Laura Flynn Boyle in terms of, I feel like maybe Mark Frost has looked at Laura Flynn Boyle's life and sort of garnered some inspiration from that. I did think at the end of the chapter that, if they ever decided to pursue a season 4, that this character, I have to be sensitive about this, but it is obvious that Laura Flynn Boyle has had some facial surgery, which a person in the limelight would have, like in a career like modelling or acting. It's kind of a common thing to do that. I mean, she's obviously had work done to her face, and because of that, I think a lot of, I have always thought, she wouldn't marry with the Donna that we imagine she has become over the years. I definitely think that if Laura Flynn Boyle wanted to come back into the series, I think that she refused it. I definitely think that, she could work this. I think that, she would be able to understand what her character had gone through. I think that Donna's story is pretty tragic overall. The fact that she went through so many years where she was seemingly struggling and obviously using drugs as some sort of deadener on her soul. But ultimately her story does have a kind of nice ending, because she reconciles with her father and she moves back home with him, and the two of them, I think Doc Hayward would be a calming influence, would probably help her to remember who she really is inside, and not this sort of fake flashy smile for the cameras Donna that she has been throughout her life. At least that's what it seems. And it seems like she must have forgiven her father for lying to her about her parentage. which is a good thing, I think. Regarding the letters she wrote to Audrey, I'd like to think that they were letters reaching out to Audrey, possibly discussing the fact that both of them have difficult sort of lives, because we learn about Audrey as well, and I'm going to talk about that in a different video, but maybe Donna knew about Audrey's situation and she wanted to reach out to her about that. I just think it's very interesting that Donna, you know, managed to survive all this, that she didn't actually go all the way under, that she didn't end up destroyed. She still comes out of it at the end with some positive energy and a need to give to others, because she's training as this nurse practitioner, so she clearly wants to devote herself to other people now and not just focus on herself and her fame and her lifestyle, her rich lifestyle. It feels a little bit like, you know, if you've ever stalked someone on Facebook who you used to go to school with or something like that, and you find out that, you know, in the past 20 years that they've been married 6 times, and or they went to jail for something, or they moved to Barbados or something, you know. That's what I felt about Donna. It was sort of like the unexpected, but then when you kind of think about it, it makes sense. So the story actually explains a lot about Gersten as well, and I think I kind of would have liked to know this before I watched the show, because I think a lot of people might, especially if they were just a casual fan, might not have even known who Gersten was in season 3. They probably, you know, a lot of people who aren't obsessive like me might not have even realised that this was Donna's sister. And obviously Gersten's appearance in season 3 differs a lot from her appearance in season 1, when she seemed like this amazing prodigy and as though she would become some kind of upper class success story. Clearly that did not happen, and she's hanging around the woods with this jerk Stephen. But the way that the story of Donna is explained and what happened to her and her family, it makes sense that Gersten would also implode after her parents split up. The Haywards actually split up. So Gersten was affected by that. We learn that she has had a lot of relationships that didn't really work out, and that she just bounces from one man to the other, and also that she cannot handle life itself, because she is very gifted at a young age, and she throws that all away basically because she emotionally can't handle it. Gersten also ends up in a psychiatric hospital. Is there anyone who didn't end up in a psychiatric hospital? It makes so much sense finding this stuff out now, and then thinking about season 3 and what Gersten did and how she spoke to Stephen, how she was dressed and what she was doing. It is explained that Gersten was also using drugs, illegal drugs, to try and survive life basically, and to try and blunt her experience, her difficult experiences of life. The other sister, Harriet, who we hear reciting poetry in season 1, I think, she seems to have escaped unscathed, and she goes on to become a pediatrician. But yeah, I think that, you know, it's sad. It's also sad if you think about like the Haywards, because they seemed like such good people. I know they kept this lie from Donna, but apart from that, you know, Will Hayward, he was such a good figure in the community. He was always reaching out to people and offering his help to people, and really the only thing that troubled him and his family was this parentage issue with Ben Horn and Eileen's relationship, her past relationship with Ben. It really makes you think a lot about, you know, choices, the choices that you make in life, and whether one choice would have changed things for that family, or were they destined to suffer this kind of fate. Gersten certainly doesn't seem to have recovered, because at the end of the chapter it says that she disappeared. If I remember right, the last we saw of her was after we heard the gunshot in the woods. I guess she may have been traumatized from that. One puzzling thing is that, you know, it says that Stephen, Gersten's lover, was wanted on a arrest warrant, and it says that he is also missing, which makes me think, did he actually shoot himself in the woods, or did he just pretend to shoot himself and then run away? Or has the timeline been changed and something else happened? I think it's really important that Donna is mentioned in this book, even though she wasn't mentioned in season 3, because now that we know this stuff about Donna, It informs a lot of things in season 3, such as James and his behaviours, and you know, when he was performing Just You and I, and now that we know this about Donna and how her life panned out, he probably knew about Donna. He probably knew what happened to her. I mean, if she was on the front page and stuff as a model, he's bound to have known what happened to Donna and how things turned out for her, and that will come into play now for me rewatching season 3. And also in regards to Audrey and her relationship with her sister, and Ben Horn and losing his daughter, and it factors into a lot of things, I think, and Gersten as well, obviously. There is also the question of Laura and how much of what happened to Laura affected Donna, whether it mattered whether Laura actually died or whether Laura just goes missing, because in the book we find out that Laura is missing. The timeline was successfully changed to that degree, but a lot of things remain the same. So it's questionable as to whether Donna's future would have been any different regardless of what happened in the 2 scenarios of Laura going missing or Laura being dead. So one interesting thing about Donna's life is that she meets Lana Milford. There is a picture taken of Donna and Lana in which Donna looks very unhappy. Obviously we know a lot more about Lana. The rewrite of Lana is that she may have been a assassin. I definitely think that Lana must have deliberately sought out Donna and pursued Donna in order to corrupt her life. And why? Whether this was her association with Twin Peaks, whether it was her association with Laura Palmer, whether it was just fate, I really don't know, but that's definitely an interesting aspect in Donna's story. Anyway, I think it's a really good story, Donna's story, and quite fascinating as well, and to learn about her and her family. I don't feel like I can identify as much with Gersten, even though we saw her a little bit in season 3. I really feel like we got to know more about Donna and the kind of person she was in season 1 and season 2. Really, I think Gersten's story in season 3, it relates back to Donna, rather than play out as her own personal story. And it's quite a sad story of the family and how a family can disengage with each other, with one another. The trials of life and what we face in life emotionally, and also the events of life, how they affect us. And yeah, I think it's a good story for us to be left with. If this is the end of Twin Peaks, if this is all we get, then I'm happy to know this about Donna, and happy to hear how she ended up and what the consequences were of the last thing we saw on screen of her fallout with her family. So anyway, that's all I'm going to talk about today, because it's getting really dark. And in the next video that I do, I'll be talking more about different characters who've appeared in the final dossier and what's happened to them and my feelings about it. So I hope you can join me for those videos, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!